The humiliation. Ambassador Elena Reyes stood motionless before the massive obsidian doors of the Galactic Council chamber. The polished surface reflected her image, a small figure in a crisp navy uniform adorned with Earth's planetary insignia. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe knot, emphasizing sharp cheekbones and eyes that revealed none of the anxiety churning inside her. "Final preparations, Ambassador?" asked Dr. Marcus Chen, her xenobiological advisor, adjusting his own uniform with nervous fingers. "Just breathing, Marcus." Elena's voice remained steadied, despite the historic weight of the moment. Beyond these doors waited representatives of 317 spacefaring civilizations, many with histories spanning millennia. Humanity, barely 3 centuries into faster-than-light travel, was the newest arrival to this ancient stage. The doors parted with a whisper of advanced technology, revealing a chamber that defied human architectural understanding. The ceiling, if it could be called that, seemed to open directly into space itself, stars shimmering in impossible clarity. Tiered seating spiraled upward in a complex helix, with each delegation positioned according to some unfathomable hierarchy. Beings of all descriptions turned their attention, eyes, sensory organs, or whatever they possessed, toward the human delegation. Elena stepped forward, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. The gravity felt slightly off, calibrated for multiple species' comfort rather than any planetary standard. She approached the speaker's dais, a floating platform of luminescent material that adjusted to her height as she stepped onto it. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice clear and carrying throughout the vast chamber. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I extend greetings and gratitude for this historic invitation. Though we are newcomers to interstellar civilization, we come with open minds, peaceful intentions, and the hope that we may both learn from and contribute to this august assembly." A low murmur rippled through the chamber. From the highest tier, a being unfurled from what had appeared to be an elaborate crystalline structure. Its body was vaguely humanoid but composed of translucent tissues that pulsed with bioluminescent light. When it spoke, the words emerged directly in Elena's mind through the neural translator implanted before her journey. "The Assembly recognizes Archon Zivrix of the Meldarian Collective, presider of the current cycle," announced an automated voice. "We acknowledge the human representative," the being stated, its mental voice carrying a distinct tone of amusement that required no translation. How quaint that such primitive beings would journey so far. "Tell us, creature of Earth, do your people still believe your species represents the pinnacle of evolution?" Elena's expression remained neutral despite the unexpected hostility. "Humanity harbors no such illusion, Archon. We are simply one branch on the vast tree of life." "A branch that nearly severed itself multiple times," called out another voice. A reptilian being with iridescent scales leaned forward from a middle tier. "Our historical records show your species came close to self-annihilation no less than 7 times before achieving space travel. Remarkable that such self-destructive organisms survived long enough to join us." Laughter echoed through the chamber, or what passed for laughter among dozens of species. Some made clicking sounds, others emitted high-pitched tones, while several simply pulsated in apparent mirth. The Archon raised an appendage for quiet. "We have studied your transmissions, human. Your species still engages in territorial disputes, still clings to divisive ideologies, still pollutes your own habitats. Your technology is centuries behind even the most basic council standards. Your fastest ships would be considered emergency life pods by most civilizations here." Elena stood motionless, absorbing each barb with practiced diplomatic poise. This was not the welcome she had expected, but neither was it entirely surprising. First contact specialists had warned that established galactic powers often tested newcomers. Furthermore, continued a floating collective of gaseous orbs that the translator identified as the Vosh confluence. "Humans exhibit alarming biological inefficiencies. Your sleep requirements alone render you inactive for nearly a third of your already brief lifespans. Your information processing capabilities are so limited that you still require external devices for calculation and memory storage. The chamber filled with more sounds of alien amusement. And yet, Elena responded calmly. Despite these limitations, we stand before you today. Only because we permitted it, the Archean stated. Your species was detected entering the adjacent Spiral Arm 57 stellar cycles ago. We have been observing your fumbling attempts at expansion since then. Your invitation here was not recognition of achievement, human. It was merely the formal acknowledgement of a potential nuisance. Dr. Chen shifted uncomfortably beside Elena, but she remained composed. She had not expected such open contempt. The Council has allocated 12 standard minutes for the Earth representative to address questions, the Archean continued. Are there any inquiries from the Assembly? A being composed of what appeared to be liquid mercury in a containment field raised of pseudopod. I am curious. Does the human species still engage in the practice of consuming deceased organic matter for sustenance? Our research indicates this barbaric method of energy acquisition persists in your culture. If you refer to cooking, yes, Elena replied evenly. Many Earth species evolved alongside the use of fire. This generated another round of amusement. And do humans still reproduce through the primitive exchange of genetic material? Asked a hovering crystalline entity. Our anthropological division found this practice particularly amusing. Elena's diplomatic training was being tested to its limits. Our biological processes evolved over millions of years and serve us well. For now, commented the reptilian being. Though your unmodified genome practically guarantees your extinction within the next 10 millennia. A brief appearance on the galactic stage indeed. For nearly an hour, the questions continued in this vein, each designed not to gather information, but to highlight human inadequacy. Elena answered each with dignity, neither defending human limitations nor apologizing for them. Finally, the Archean raised all 4 of its upper appendages. The allocation for human address has expired. The Earth delegation is dismissed until tomorrow's session, where they may observe proper council proceedings from the observation tier. Perhaps they will learn something of civilization. Elena bowed slightly. The human delegation thanks the council for its candid welcome. We look forward to tomorrow's session. As she stepped from the dais, whispers followed her exit, many too quick for the translator to catch, though their dismissive tone required no interpretation. The massive doors sealed behind them with a resonant thud. Once they were alone in the antechamber, Dr. Chen exploded. That was a calculated humiliation. They invited us here just to mock us publicly. Yes, Elena said quietly. They did. We should leave immediately. Show them we won't be disrespected like this. Elena shook her head. That's exactly what they expect, Marcus. They want us to storm out in wounded pride. To prove we're emotional, irrational, primitive. Everything they already believe. Then what do we do? Sit quietly while they continue to belittle us tomorrow. A small smile formed at the corner of Elena's mouth. No, we prepare our response. Gather the team on the Endeavor immediately. The Earth diplomatic vessel Endeavor hung in space near the massive Galactic Council station, its sleek design a testament to human engineering, even if it was considered primitive by Council standards. Inside the ship's tactical room, Ambassador Reyes stood before her assembled team. They didn't just mock us, she explained, eyes intense. They revealed their own weaknesses. All I heard were insults, muttered Security Chief Jackson, his muscular frame tense with anger. Listen deeper, Elena replied. Why would advanced species feel the need to belittle newcomers so thoroughly? What threat do we pose that requires such a coordinated effort to put us in our place? Dr. Chen looked up from his datapad. Fear. But that makes no sense. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Technology isn't everything, Elena countered. I want everything we have on each council species, history, biology, culture, technological development paths. There's something we're missing. Communications Specialist Rivera raised her hand. Ambassador, While monitoring their transmissions, I noticed something strange. Many of the species that openly mocked us seem to treat each other with similar contempt when they think no one is listening. Interesting, Elena said. Expand on that. The Vosh confluence. The gas beings. They are constantly threatened with resource restrictions by the Neldarians. And the reptilians, the Zith Confederation. They're openly called scaled barbarians by the crystalline entities when in private communications. Intelligence Officer Patel nodded. I've been compiling historical data. The Council presents itself as a united front, but there are deep divisions. Some species have been members for thousands of years, but are still treated as lesser. The power structure seems incredibly rigid. Elena began to pace, her mind racing. What else do we know about Council protocols? There must be formal ways to challenge decisions or establish standing. Dr. Chen looked up from his research console. There's something called the Species Merit Protocols, ancient procedures that allow newcomers to demonstrate value. But according to records, no one has invoked them in over 3,000 years. Why not? Elena asked. Because the established powers made them virtually impossible to satisfy, Chen replied. The tests are calibrated to require massive technological advancement, enormous resource expenditure, or both. Elena's smile grew. So they're designed to ensure newcomers fail. Exactly, Chen confirmed. No emerging species could possibly. He stopped, seeing Elena's expression. You're not considering. I am. She turned to the wall display. Computer, show me everything about the species merit protocols. Every test, every requirement, every loophole. The screen filled with alien text and diagrams. Elena studied them intently. Get some rest, everyone, she said finally. Tomorrow, we go back to the Council. And this time, we won't be just observing. As the team departed, Security Chief Jackson lingered. What are you planning, Ambassador? Elena's eyes reflected the starlight from the viewport. They invited us to watch, Jackson. Instead, we're going to teach them something about humanity they never expected to learn. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Which is? That sometimes, she said, her voice soft but resolute, the youngest species in the room might just be the wisest. The counterstrike. The Galactic Council chamber hummed with activity as hundreds of species prepared for the day's proceedings. Elena Reyes and her team entered through a side portal, directed to the observation tier, a transparent bubble-like structure protruding from the lowest level of the chamber. It was clearly designed to segregate unimportant visitors from the actual proceedings. Ambassador, whispered Dr. Chen, are you certain about this? The species merit protocols haven't been invoked in millennia, which means most representatives won't even remember the proper procedures, Elena replied softly. That's our advantage. The Archean Zivrix materialized at the center of the chamber, its translucent form shimmering with what seemed to be anticipation. The Galactic Council's 4,736th formal session begins. First item. Discussion of resource allocation in the Cygnus Spur territories. Elena stepped forward, activating the communication node at the edge of the observation bubble. Point of order, Archean. A ripple of surprise moved through the assembled delegates. The Archean's luminescent patterns flickered in what the humans recognize as irritation. Observers do not address the Council directly, stated the Archean. Return to your designated area. Under Council Foundational Statute 17A, Elena continued, her voice firm. Any recognized delegation may invoke point of order regarding procedural matters. We have been recognized as a delegation, however junior. Murmurs spread throughout the chamber. The Archean's bioluminescence pulsed rapidly as it communicated with unseen advisors. The human is technically correct, admitted a voice from the upper tiers, the crystalline entity from the previous day. Though the statute is rarely invoked by non-members, the Council recognizes the human point of order. The Archean conceded reluctantly. State your procedural concern. Elena's heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. On behalf of Earth, I formally invoke the species merit protocols as established in the Council's founding documents. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates rose from their positions. Others emitted sounds that overloaded the translation system. The Archon's form pulsed with such intensity that it appeared almost solid. Silence. The mental command reverberated through the chamber. Once order was restored, the Archon addressed Elena directly. The species merit protocols are an archaic formality. They have not been invoked in 3,214 standard years, Elena finished. Nevertheless, they remain codified in Council law. Unless the Council wishes to acknowledge that its own foundational principles are no longer valid. The reptilian delegate hissed softly. The human has done its research. Impressive. For a primitive. The protocols were designed for a different era, countered the Archon. When the Council was still establishing its structure, all the more reason to honor them, Elena replied. Unless the Council wishes to claim it has abandoned its original values. A new voice entered the conversation, melodious and surprisingly supportive. The human delegate raises a valid point. If we discard our foundational principles when inconvenient, what remains of our authority? The speaker was a tall, avian being with iridescent feathers and eyes that reflected starlight. The translator identified it as Ambassador Cal Thorne of the Avis Collective. A species Elena had noted remained silent during yesterday's mockery. The Archon's form contracted slightly. Very well. The species merit protocols are hereby acknowledged as active. The human delegation may select one challenge from the approved list. A holographic display appeared before Elena, showing hundreds of options in the Council's standard script. Most were transparently designed to be impossible, requiring technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities or resources that would bankrupt entire star systems. Elena smiled. We select Protocol 87C, the Diplomatic Resolution Challenge. The selection caused another stir. This protocol was rarely chosen, even in the ancient days when the merit system was active. It required the challenging species to resolve a long-standing dispute between Council members, a task practically designed for failure, as most intractable conflicts had complex histories and entrenched positions. And, interesting choice, the Archon commented. Protocol 87C requires the challenger to successfully mediate a dispute that has resisted previous resolution attempts. The Council will select an appropriate conflict. With respect, Archon, Elena interjected, the founding documents state that the challenging species may select any active dispute recorded in Council archives. The Archon's form pulsed with clear agitation. That provision was intended to. It is explicitly stated in the protocol's text, Elena pressed, unless the Council wishes to rewrite its history during this session. After a tense silence, the Archon relented. The human delegation may select a dispute. Though I warn you, failure will result in Earth's relegation to monitored status for no less than 50 standard years. Elena nodded solemnly. Understood. Earth selects the Helial extraction rights dispute between the Vosh Confluence and the Meldarian Collective. The chamber fell silent. Elena had chosen the most sensitive conflict possible, one between the Archon's own species and one of their chief rivals. The dispute had lasted over 7 centuries and concerned access to exotic matter in the corona of a dying star. That conflict is too complex for, began the Archon. Are you declaring your own species dispute beyond resolution, Archon? Elena asked innocently. That would be an interesting position for the Council presider to take. The reptilian delegate made a sound that might have been appreciation. The human plays the game well. Very well, the Archon conceded. The Helial extraction rights dispute is selected. You have one standard rotation to prepare. Tomorrow, you will present your proposed resolution to the full Council. Back aboard the Endeavor, Elena's team worked through the night, analyzing centuries of failed negotiations, resource claims, and the underlying needs of both species. It's practically unsolvable, Dr. Chen said, rubbing his tired eyes. The Meldarians need the stellar radiation for reproduction. The Vosh need the same radiation for sustenance. Neither can compromise without existential threat. Elena studied the data displays. That's how everyone has approached it, as a zero-sum game where one side must lose. But what if there's another perspective? What do you mean? Asked Intelligence Officer Patel. The Meldarians can only reproduce during specific radiation bursts that occur every 17 years, Elena observed. But the Vosh need continuous access for feeding. Exactly why they can't share, Chen pointed out. But what if they don't need to? Elena leaned forward. Computer, show me the spectral analysis of helial radiation compared to other stellar phenomena. The display shifted, showing comparative energy patterns. There, Elena pointed, the Cygnus pulsar. Its radiation signature is nearly identical in the spectrum the Vosh require, but useless to Meldarian reproduction. But the Cygnus pulsar is in disputed territory, Security Chief Jackson noted. No species has extraction rights there. Elena smiled. Exactly. The next day, Elena stood before the full council, her proposal prepared. The massive chamber was even more crowded, word having spread of the humans' unexpected challenge. Esteemed representatives, she began, the dispute between the Meldarian collective and the Vosh confluence has persisted for 7 centuries because both sides have legitimate, existential needs that appear mutually exclusive. Previous mediation attempts have failed because they sought compromise where none is possible. Instead, I propose expansion. She activated a holographic display showing the Cygnus pulsar. This stellar body produces radiation nearly identical to helial radiation in the specific spectral ranges required by the Vosh confluence. However, it lacks the periodic bursts necessary for Meldarian reproduction. The Vosh representative's containment field rippled with interest. The Cygnus pulsar is in unclaimed space. Access would require council authorization that has been repeatedly denied. Because, Elena continued, the council has maintained that the region must remain neutral due to its proximity to 3 territorial boundaries. However, if both the Meldarians and Vosh jointly petitioned for specialized access rights under Statute 342b, the council could grant limited extraction permission without compromising the neutrality of the surrounding space. The Archon's form dimmed slightly. Such a petition would require unprecedented cooperation between 2 species with centuries of animosity. Perhaps, Elena agreed, but consider the benefits. The Meldarians retain exclusive access to helial radiation during reproductive cycles, while the Vosh gain continuous access to an equivalent energy source. Both species' needs are met without compromise to either. And what does Earth gain from this arrangement? Asked the reptilian delegate suspiciously. Elena smiled. Observation rights. Earth scientists would greatly benefit from studying both extraction processes. Knowledge, delegates, that is our request. Nothing more. The chamber buzzed with discussion. The Vosh and Meldarian representatives conferred with their advisors. Finally, the Vosh spokesperson floated forward. The confluence finds this solution acceptable. We would be willing to explore joint petition rights with the Meldarians. After a longer pause, the Archon's form brightened. The collective would consider such an arrangement, provided safeguards for our reproductive cycles are guaranteed. Elena nodded. Earth would be happy to draft a proposed agreement incorporating those safeguards. The avian ambassador Cal Thorne spread magnificent wings in a gesture of approval. It seems the human delegation has satisfied Protocol 87C in principle. A fresh perspective has indeed found possibility where we saw none. A preliminary solution is not a final agreement, the Archon cautioned. True, Elena conceded. But the protocol requires only a viable pathway to resolution accepted by both parties. That condition has been met. After much discussion, the Council was forced to agree. Earth had successfully completed the challenge. In accordance with Council tradition, the Archon stated reluctantly, Earth is hereby elevated from observer status to provisional member, with all associated rights and privileges. Applause, or its equivalent among hundreds of species, filled the chamber. Elena maintained her diplomatic composure, but her eyes shone with quiet triumph. As the session concluded, delegates approached the human team with newfound respect. The avian ambassador Cal Thorne was among the first. An impressive display, Ambassador Reyes, Cal Thorne said. Many younger species have been silenced by the Council's mockery. Humans have a long history of being underestimated, Elena replied with a smile. A trait you share with many species relegated to the lower tiers, observed Cal Thorne. Perhaps Earth would be interested in forming relationships with others who understand what it means to be dismissed by the ancient powers. Earth would welcome such relationships, Elena confirmed. After all, fresh perspectives seem to be in short supply here. The avian's eyes twinkled. Indeed, you may have started something greater than a mere diplomatic victory today, Ambassador. Several delegations are already discussing the re-examination of other unsolvable conflicts. Change often begins with a single question, Elena said. In this case, what if there's another way? As they departed the chamber, Dr. Chen leaned close. You knew all along, didn't you? That picking that specific conflict would create ripples beyond our own standing. Elena watched as representatives from traditionally marginalized species gathered in animated discussion. I suspected. Systems that remain static for too long become brittle, Marcus. Sometimes they just need a gentle push at the right point. There will be resistance, warned Security Chief Jackson. The established powers won't surrender influence easily. Of course not, Elena agreed. But they've already made their first mistake. Which was? Asked communications specialist Rivera. Elena smiled as they passed the massive council doors. They invited humanity to the table. And then they underestimated us. Historically, that's never worked out well for anyone. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued its session, but something fundamental had shifted. The ancient powers had intended to put humanity in its place with mockery and dismissal. Instead, they had inadvertently introduced a catalyst for change into a system desperate for renewal. As the Endeavor prepared to return to Earth with news of their unexpected diplomatic victory, Elena Reyes stood at the viewport, watching the glittering expanse of the Council station against the backdrop of stars. Humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun, but they had already changed the galaxy in ways no one, least of all the ancient, complacent powers of the Council, could have anticipated. And this, she knew, was only the beginning.